I'm delighted to welcome Lynn Beattie on the Invicta Vita podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you ever so much for having me.
It's a real honour to have you. So we're here to discuss your career, your journey, some of the advice you can give to our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So you funded Mrs MummyPenny, but before that you had a career in corporate finance. Tell me a little bit about your career and then what led you to start your own company.
Yeah, so I've led quite a traditional life ladder for part of my life. So I went to university, got a maths degree, then went to the city to work for HSBC, where I became an accountant, qualified very young, like 24, and sort of worked my way through the sort of financial world. So I worked for Tesco's and then EE. So I'm very blue chip corporate through and through, but trying to sort of specialise in retail because that's what was always quite passionate about. But working in sort of finance, I got quite disillusioned with it. That literally these big companies, Tesco's, HSBC, they're trying to make money for their shareholders, okay? And I was like, but that's not what I want to do with my life. I want to make a difference, like to real people, rather than sell people loaves of bread where there's a 30% margin on it. But a brilliant basis for my career. So that's what I did for 15 years. I also had 3 babies, boys, during that time. So I had Dylan when I was 30, Josh when I was 32, and Jack when I was 35. And I actually orchestrated redundancy from EE when Jack was very little, because I had quite a senior job by then. Like I was earning really good money working in London, but I hardly saw my children. And everybody does things differently with children. And, some people are fine to have a nanny and have the career, and I don't judge anybody, but I wanted to spend time with my children. And I was also very disillusioned by the financial world. So I've always been the go-to friend for financial guidance. Where's the best savings account? Where should I move my mortgage to? I'm in loads of debt. How do I sort it out? So just on a whim, I was like, well, I'm going to set up a business sort of talking about financial guidance predominantly for women, because 12 years ago when Mrs MummyPenny was born, there was not anybody. There were not many people talking about money in a sort of relatable, authentic way. That I knew. I mean, Martin Lewis has obviously been around for, I don't think he predates me that much. I think he was around maybe 3 or 4 years before me. So yeah, I just sort of thought, like, go for it. And I did sort of wing it a little bit. That's a bit part of my life story. I take educated risks where I think I identify a gap in the market and step into it, but I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. But I'm a firm believer in having a strong network, being a kind person, being authentic and real, and you can almost do anything you want if you've got those basic skills in place. Obviously I'm a very commercially minded accountant, blah, 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 blah. So that stands me in really good stead to set up my own business. But yeah, so Mrs MummyPenny was born 12 years ago, the same year that my youngest was born. So,
Wow.
so I had 2 babies in 2012.
Wow, incredible. And
Just one's a business.
full-time business. But
Yeah.
you talked about being disillusioned with the finance world.
Mm.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about that? And for our listeners, what does that actually mean? Why
Yeah.
disillusioned?
I worked for bank, telco, and retail. They're all really male dominated, particularly in the financial side. So, and I was like sort of head of senior manager level, so there was even fewer women. And the women that I did work with were not always that sympathetic to family life. It's like they were trying to be one of the boys. And I had 3 little children. I was the breadwinner. I was married at the time, and I was earning a lot more than my husband. So I felt a tremendous amount of pressure on me. Financially, we weren't doing that well, because once we start going into sort of personal stuff, I have issues with cash flow management personally. I can talk to anybody about how to manage their day-to-day finances, their pensions, their investments, like, on a guidance basis. But when it comes to my sort of day-to-day cash flow management, I'm not the best at it. But again, I talk about it, and I'm an emotional spender. And how do you stop being an emotional spender 28 years of therapy later? I still haven't really worked it out. So I just think I just got really disillusioned with the male-dominated world. It wasn't set up to support me as a woman earning a decent amount of money, but trying to look after 3 kids as well. So I walked away, but I walked away with money.
I can definitely relate. Yeah, I can definitely relate, having been in the finance industry for 14 years myself. So I hear you.
And I work closely with a lot of companies in the financial industry now, because they want Mrs MummyPenny to represent them. So it's ironic how things all come back. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing well at what I'm doing, because I've got that, brilliant network from when I worked in the corporate world, and people trust me because I'm an accountant and I can communicate and I can talk the talk. But every client I work with, I understand their business model intimately, and I ask them a lot of questions, and I know people on the board, because I will only work with brands who have the same sort of ethics and ethos that I do. And part of that is that they're financially stable. And I can only really do that because of my commercial acumen as an accountant. So, it was brilliant that I did it. It's just quite nice to evolve into being like a journalist or influencer, whatever you want to call me,
Yeah.
for the sort of middle stage of my career.
And when did you realise that your business was really taking off? What was that one pivotal moment?
It was, so in 2019, so this is before lockdown. You've got before lockdown and after lockdown, haven't you? I was still married. Yeah. And it was going wrong for a long time. And, as these things do. But I had little children, and it's a massive decision, as anybody listening can understand, to end a marriage. But we were in loads of debt. We were in like 16 grand's worth of debt. And it was a combined debt. It's keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. It's going on holidays with the kids, because I'm a really passionate believer in holidays for the kids. Sometimes getting into debt to do it. That's what children remember, right? It's the holidays, isn't it? It's not the Christmas presents on Christmas Day. It's the big sort of experiences, I think. That's my view. But we were in loads of debt, and I started documenting it. So I wrote for I Weekend, I newspaper. I think I wrote for The Sun, documenting my story. So journalists started to pick up on it. And I almost sold the story that it was like middle class debt. Everybody's got different definitions of classes, but I'm university educated. I've had a strong career, so I guess that puts me into middle class, even though I'm from a working class background, very much so. First person to ever go to university. And then I paid off the debt after 2 years, all by myself. And then I told my ex-husband, it was over 2 months after I paid off the debt. And then I wrote about it for the Financial Times. So getting a byline in the Financial Times, okay, it's big time. It's the pinnacle of financial journalism. And like Claire Barrett, thank you, lovely Claire, for commissioning me to write that article back in 2019, because that went viral. It was everywhere. It was, the like Apple News, Yahoo News, the main news feeds. It was everywhere. So that was the pivotal moment. So it's really ironic that getting into debt, but then paying it off, that's what made me famous.
Yeah, I think it made you relatable as well.
Yeah, particularly as I was going, although I didn't publicly talk about the divorce then, so nobody really knew, because it was really traumatic. And, as a lot of people will understand, we separated, but we still had to live together. So I then had the next sort of year of him living in my house. It was always my house. And then we eventually got divorced, and I bought him out, and he left 3 days before lockdown. Thank you to the bank who lent me the 100 grand I needed to buy him out. So I've talked about all those kind of things, because I think it's really important for women who are in challenging situations at home that there is a way out. It can be really challenging when there's financial stuff involved, and you maybe don't have an amazing career, you maybe don't earn that much money. There's a lot of relationships that are imbalanced financially, and you feel quite trapped. So I always think it's really important just to talk about what I did to get myself out. Like, I paid off the debt. Then once I made sure that debt was gone, that was the point where I was like, right, okay, now I can separate.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are obviously key differences between working for a big corporate. You obviously had very senior positions. What are the pros and cons of setting up your own business?
Yeah. Oh gosh, so many. I love being self-employed because of the freedom and the flexibility I've got. So today, for example, I'm here on a Friday afternoon talking to you in London. I live like a half-hour trip out of King's Cross, so it doesn't take me that long to get here. But I've played a paddle game this morning for 2 hours. Did that till 12 o'clock. Had a coffee with my paddle girlfriends. Talked about, the really cool sort of stuff you talk to your paddle friends about, normally relationships, and then jumped on the train and came here. Like, you're not going to get that flexibility with a corporate job. Also, because I'm a single mum of, my boys are now 18, 16 and 13. They're very sporty. There's a lot of ferrying around. And also, I have no support from their father. So I have to do the lion's share of everything. Although, you know what, they're old enough to get themselves to places. We live near a train station, okay, in Hertfordshire. But they go to school a train ride away, and all this costs money. And, I've got 3 men living with me, so that costs 500 quid a month in the Aldi food bill. It was, I think, the thing that I love the most about being self-employed for, I've been self-employed for 10 years. Mrs MummyPenny started 12 years ago, is all the time I've had with those kids. Like, I do get to their rugby games. I've been to every sport. Imagine how many sports days I've been to.
I can imagine.
I mean, I got bored of them in the end. We've only got 18 years with your child, really, haven't you? So I've really tried to make the most of it, and there's been sacrifices financially. Like, I'm still not great at managing cash flow, but I do have a nice house that I have really, really fought to keep. It's really challenging at the moment, when we've all had to renegotiate our mortgages. Like, my mortgage went up by £350 a month, but I've still got my house, so the boys have all got a bedroom each, and they're with me most of the time. But when you think about the corporate world, I think what I miss about it is the regularity of that monthly check, and that's such security. Is it secure? That's a really good question, because it's not actually, because we could all get made redundant.
You could lose your job, yeah.
Exactly. And so much of that is happening at the moment, particularly to anybody, but it's quite a shock when it hits you in your 40s, which I know a lot of people in their 40s who are at high positions lost their job.
Yeah, I actually even know some of my ex-colleagues in their mid-50s were made redundant from the bank. And they said to me, I still need to work,
Yeah.
but actually it's a really difficult age because no one wants to hire me because they're saying I'm nearing
Too old.
retirement, I'm too old. They think I'm set in my ways because of my age. So they almost said to me, you know, I wish this had happened 10, 15 years earlier because then I'm easier to mold or people don't see me as approaching retirement. So some were in a fortunate position where they went, oh, I don't have a mortgage anymore, or I never had one, so I'm all right. But what about those who do and still have to...
Or have just got divorced? Because
Yes.
so many of us get divorced in our mid to late 40s.
Absolutely. And actually, I know a lot of people in that boat where the power dynamic's imbalanced because one earns a lot more money and therefore sometimes it makes them stay in those relationships where they think, I don't want to be in this relationship, but I cannot afford to leave, or we have children. And actually, you talked about having 3 children. A lot of my clients do have children and they approach me to coach their children. And an increasing theme I'm hearing is, I'm really worried about my son or daughter. They don't want to talk to me about their anxiety, or they're hiding things from me, or they just go into their room and, you know, they're on their phone, or I don't know what they're doing. They're keeping things from me. What advice would you give as a parent to other parents feeling this way?
That's I hear that all the time, and I've experienced it with my kids. Like it really hasn't been plain sailing. So I've been divorced for 5 years. There's been all kinds of family stuff that I will never share with anybody in the public arena. But I've always been open and honest with my children about stuff I'm going through, and also stuff they're going through. So we always talk about sex, drugs, alcohol, parties. It's all just laid on the line. And likewise, they know when I'm going out on dates and stuff. So it's like, then they feel comfortable to share what they're going through because they know we're in effect all going through the same thing. Like, we've all got hormonal surges. I'm like 4 years into perimenopause and my hormones I'm struggling. Like, they're all over the place. It's the same for them. Just different types of hormones. But I just have those open and honest conversations with them. And yeah, it'll be embarrassing the first couple of times, but then it just becomes normal. I've always spoken to them about money, obviously. They are very financially astute children. They've known what a pension is since they were little. They've all got, like the 2 older ones have got like junior ISAs, you know, because you got that money from the government when babies were born. My third, they stopped it before my third was born. So he's got like a stocks and shares ISA within mine, and they all understand what it means. And you just explain it to them in simple language and they get it. So my eldest turned 18 last weekend, which was a little bit traumatic actually when your youngest child turns 18. But his junior ISA matured. So he's just suddenly got 3 grand, which is like, if somebody gave me 3 grand, I would be like really chuffed. And he's 18 and he's literally like, Mum, what on earth do I do with it? So it's all going to be turned into content, obviously. I'm working with brands who want to sponsor that content. But it's, like he gets it. He gets it. And I know he wouldn't be silly with that money, but they're all very different with their attitudes to money. My eldest is academic and quite sensible, very focused. Like, he's going to go off to university to do sports science. And, you know, he knows that it's going to cost him 40 grand, 50 grand to go off and do it. But that's his path. And I fully support that. Where my middle son is really not academic. If he gets a grade 4 in English and maths, I will be the proudest mum in the world. He will, hopefully. He's doing his GCSEs this year. He's so entrepreneurial. So he will be a natural businessman, electrician, whatever he chooses to do. And I don't know about my youngest. He's 13. He's maybe somewhere in the middle. But they're all very financially astute.
But that's great because you've exposed them to talking about money and understanding it. Because a lot of people feel really ashamed.
That kind of stuff.
They feel ashamed about talking about money. It's become a bit taboo. How can we shift that mindset?
Just talk about taboo subjects. Like the traditional taboo subjects are death, divorce, sex, money. Just be open and talk about them. Like, if my children are going to go off to a party and drink, you know, they're teenagers. I drank when I was 15, 16. I want them to tell me what they're doing, and they know that I can come and pick them up, or if somebody's like maybe feeling a bit ill, I can be the trusted mum to come and, I mean, I'm obviously not going to encourage them, but I just want them to be okay and know that so it's always interesting, isn't it, how much you share from your childhood with your children. I maybe haven't told them everything, but they know I was going to the pubs in Penzance drinking when I was 15.
Yeah, because you're being open with them.
And then it comes, it's like karma. I think if you are kind to people, that kindness always comes back.
It always comes back. And equally, I feel if you're open and honest with your children, they will feel safe and be encouraged to share a lot more with you.
Yeah.
Than if it's a sort of closed, no, this is taboo, this is off the table. And of course, you know, teenagers don't want to share everything with their parents. That's normal. We've all been there.
They're not really that keen of talking about girlfriends.
Yeah, that is very common. My husband has 2 boys, and I know that, you know, teenagers like to have their privacy and their secret.
Really
that's important.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes parents want to know everything, but it's actually letting them come in their own time. Should we be encouraging schools to talk more about money and how to save?
It's such a frustrating area. I've been campaigning for literally the whole of Mrs MummyPenny to do this. And I know other people in my field have as well. And brands have tried to lobby, and I mean, they're probably doing it because they're trying to look good. But finally, Bridget Phillipson announced last week, a couple of weeks ago, that it's going to go into the curriculum for primary school children, but not until 2028. So it's positive that it's happening, because you need to start the basic financial stuff at primary school, because children form their financial mindsets when they're 7. Like Cambridge University did a study on this. So that's the time to start talking to them. By the time they're at secondary school, it's too late. So it's coming. But I think that it's really good that schools are going to do it. But there's always been this argument of, should it be the schools or should it be the parents? But the thing is if the parents aren't financially educated, which unfortunately, most people aren't, then we need it to come from the educational setting. So it's coming, just not soon enough.
Not soon enough. But do you think this generation of young people are more financially savvy than previous generations, or less so? Where would you position them?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. It's very different, because I think the impact of social media and the impact of COVID on I was talking to Jack, my youngest, about this the other day. So he is 13. So he was at primary school when COVID happened. So losing 2 years of education didn't really impact him that much. But if you've lost 2 years of year 10 and year 11, or you've lost 2 years of when you're at university, there's also, interestingly, a really big impact when you haven't gone to nursery when you're aged like 2 and 3. So I think Jack got away with it in this sweet spot of, year 4, 5, 6. Doesn't really matter that much. But my middle son, Josh, he missed out on his last year of primary and his first year of secondary. So that's impacted him massively. So I think we've got this building problem of, whenever I speak to a lot of schools, because I have done a lot of STEM ambassador work, promoting maths for girls, and because I did a maths degree. But there's so many mental health issues in schools, and a lot of the teachers are telling me that this is anecdotally for sort of schools in Hertfordshire, but they're like around 50% of the kids have got mental health issues, and that can range from anything from anxiety to eating disorders to neurodiversity stuff to all the spectrum of mental health issues. How can schools cope with that? And how's that going to manifest into adult life? Because these kids are now coming up to adult life. So they've got the mental health issues, the lacking resilience, maybe. They haven't been financially educated at school. So they're influenced by social media. They're keeping up with the Joneses. They want the latest dress because they've seen so-and-so wearing it. But we've got this really interesting point where we came into the world where it was easy to find a job. It was easy to buy a house. And we've now got, equity because we were able to do those two things. And we didn't have social media growing up, where our kids now, they've got all of those impacts, and it's going to be really difficult to find a job. It's costing them loads to go to university. They're not necessarily guaranteed a job, and they've got all these mental health issues to go alongside it. Like, I just feel for my children and, people sort of that are teenagers and in their 20s now, because it feels very hard.
It does feel very hard. And I was actually speaking to someone today who was saying to me, I'm really fed up of that narrative of young people are lazy, they don't want to work. Mental health is just something that's made up. And actually, it is quite frustrating, because I hear people saying it. And I know so many of my clients who are looking for jobs, they're trying really hard, they feel disillusioned, they're ghosted, they don't get the feedback, people don't respond. A lot of them are highly educated, went to top universities, did really well. And it's sort of this, well, what do I do? How do I actually pick myself up?
Yeah. And with so many no's, it's human nature, right? If you're rejected time and time and time and time, and I know that they could be applying for 50 jobs. Just imagine being rejected 50 times.
It's horrible.
I mean, it's not something I've ever had to go through, because, when I graduated in 1999, I had a maths degree, I guess, so that was but it wasn't from an amazing university. It was from like Brunel University, which now, they're not top of the league tables now. They were all right back then. But I walked into a job at HSBC who paid me 25 grand a year in 1999. Like, that salary now would be around 55, 60 grand. As if you're going to get paid 60 grand as your first graduate job now, you probably still get 20, 25 grand, the same salary as I got in 1999.
I've seen some jobs that are paying, 30K, and they're requesting so many things. Like they're entry-level jobs, but they're requesting 2 or 3 years experience. And
Yeah.
how can you expect
And you have
that?
to have got 3 A's.
Yes.
And you have to have, it's preferably that you're from a red brick university. All of that elitism still exists.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's so much harder to enter the workplace now than when you entered, and then even when I entered slightly later, I definitely have seen that shift. If you could give a young person one piece of advice in terms of saving money, how to save, because obviously a lot of them, they go to university, they have all this debt. What would your advice be?
Well, the first thing is, don't think of it as debt. Think of it as an investment in your future. Because the likelihood is, right, if you go off to, hopefully my son's going to go to Loughborough, if not Loughborough, Birmingham, okay? I think more likely Birmingham, knowing what his predicted grades are. But so you're going to go off and get 40 grand's worth of money that you're putting towards your future. Hopefully you'll get a job that pays you more than, you know, the average salary. So then it's been worth the investment, hasn't it? It's literally a mathematical calculation. The return on income, if you earn an extra 10 grand a year, you're going to get payback within 5 or 6 years, you know, add on interest and all that kind of stuff. I always turn things into maths. I can't help it. Yeah, so reframe it in your mind that it's an investment in your future. It will be it probably was, or if you're thinking of doing it, the best years of your life. Like, I loved university. I really loved it. And it prepares you so well for adult life because it's a soft landing into adult life, isn't it? You're in it, maybe like a nice campus university. So you're in your own little village of students. It's just lovely. Like Birmingham and Loughborough are very like that. And Warwick, Warwick was my first choice university, but I was meant to get an A in maths and I didn't. Side note, my parents died when I was a teenager, so that slightly affected my A-level results, let's just say.
Of course.
But, you know, I still went off to uni and still triumphed despite it all. I think it made me even stronger, to be fair, because I had nobody to rely on, so I had to go out and do it myself. But, yeah, and then I just think, don't be so hard on yourself because it is so different now to 10 years ago, to 20 years ago, to 30 years ago. So don't listen to the narrative of people saying, you've got it easy or you've got it hard. Just sort of focus on yourself. And certainly the advice I'd give to my children is make yourself unique. And it's the advice I've given to myself and any of my friends. You need to do something that makes you stand out from the norm.
Yep.
So whatever that might be, like a club you join at university, or maybe you're an amazing paddle player, like just do that one thing that makes you different to everybody else, that gives you something really interesting to talk about in interviews, that makes you memorable. Like the name Mrs MummyPenny, that was chosen for a reason because it's so memorable. Like people don't forget who I am.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that to my clients. What makes you unique? You need to stand out because the competition is fierce.
Yeah.
So you need to be memorable.
Yeah.
You know, don't blend in. There's only one of you, and AI cannot replace that.
No. Like AI, I think AI is a brilliant thing. I embrace it. I use it as my research assistant. My PA is AI. She's very complimentary. She needs to like be a bit more critical. But I think as long as you know its limitations, use it. I mean, I was telling my middle son, we'll just put into, I use Copilot. I know there's loads of them. But I said to him, let's put into Copilot, how can I revise for my GCSE maths when I've got ADHD? And it literally comes up with the best stream of, because he's like, Mum, I don't understand how to revise for my maths GCSE. And I can't tell him because I probably have some ADHD traits, but I can focus for more than 10 minutes. I can focus for 2 hours. He can't.
Oh.
So he needs a very bespoke plan, and AI is perfect for that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Do not get AI to write your essay for you.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
Oh my gosh. Or your CV. I put my CV into AI and it was awful.
Yeah, and it rejects it, you know, companies now
Yeah.
have the software, and so do the universities. Do not write your personal statements with AI because they will get a straight rejection.
Please
I
don't do that.
No. I want to ask you, what's the best investment you ever made, whether it's financial or something more personal?
It's always been property for me. Um, I bought. I was with a boyfriend in my early 20s, and I had a good job. He had a good job, so we were able to buy a house. I think I was 24, but it was 200 grand to buy a 3-bedroom house in Essex, like near Brentwood, which is like a really nice part of Essex. So I appreciate that's very different. Now that same house, because I've looked, I bought it for 200 grand. That same house is probably worth 800 grand now. But it's the sliding scale that I when I left that relationship, I left with 25 grand. That's what I used to put down deposit on my next house, and so I do have a nice chunk of equity in my house. I also, though, because of the divorce, still owe quite a chunk of money, so that's quite stressful. I did not prioritize my pension in my 20s, as in I opted out. Never opt out of your pension, because a really great way to explain your pension, okay, is you might see 100 quid a month going out and you might think, I can't afford that. However, that 50 quid or 100 quid going out of your pension, think of it like, I'm going to reference Claire again. I've already mentioned her once, but this is an analogy that she has shared, which really explains pensions well. It's like a meal deal, a Boots meal deal. The pension is the sandwich that you contribute to, but then the bag of crisps or the bag of edamame beans, let's be a bit healthier, is the employer's bit. And then the drink is the government bit. And what's a meal deal without the sort of drink and the snack? And that's literally free money. It's free money you're getting from your employer, and it's free money you're getting from the government. So it's very short-sighted to opt out of your pension, which I did in my 20s, but I've been able to top it up in recent years. So I've got a decent, savings for my future. And it's something that changes over time. And a lot of this relates to my parents dying young as well. But there's a big proportion of me that's about living for today, but there's also a portion of me that's saving for tomorrow. And I think we should always have feet in both sides.
Absolutely. No, I think that's brilliant advice. And what's next for you, Lynn?
What's next is very exciting. I like to evolve and change. So I'm currently training to be a psychotherapist, as you do. I went back to college 2 weeks ago. So it's quite a new thing. And I'm I'm following the Human Givens Institute route, which is a form of therapy which has been around for 30 years. And it's very based on trauma and resolving that trauma and giving you tools to deal with that trauma, and it can be resolved very quickly. So within like 3, 4 or 5 sessions.
Oh, wow.
So it plays to my money saving side as well, because psychotherapy to me, I've had so many different types of therapy throughout my life. And traditionally it's you go once a week, you go once every 2 weeks, and it costs 100 quid a session, and it can end up costing you thousands and thousands, where this therapy works a little bit differently. So my first course was on how to tell stories that heal.
I love that. So you're actually combining your sort of savvy money saving skills with actually healing and assessing that trauma.
Yeah, because money issues, like I just had this light bulb moment like a few weeks ago. Money issues happen because of some kind of traumatic event or some kind of mental health issue. So there's no point looking at the money issue. You actually need to go back and fix the root cause. And until you do that, like with me saying that I'm an emotional spender, I've still not gotten to the bottom of why I do it. So I do like debt cycles. I need some more therapy, and I've been in therapy for 30 years. I'll be in therapy for the rest of my life. So another way of, I just think therapy is amazing. So I thought, why not train in it? Gives me another string to my bow. It's a really good retirement plan as well, because you could just see like 5 or 6 clients a week, and that's going to get you an extra 600 quid a week. That's quite a nice supplementary income to the pension pot I've already got.
Yeah, I agree. And I think
And you can do it till the day you die.
you can. And actually, I think more people are now starting to realize the benefits. I think 15, 20 years ago, certainly when I was a lot younger, people would view therapy as you're crazy or something's wrong with you or you're really weak or, as opposed to
a
it's
sign
healthy.
Of weakness.
Yeah. And I actually think the sign of strength.
Sign of strength.
You're recognizing something's not quite right or I need to address something. And sometimes you realize things from your childhood that you weren't even aware of.
Yeah.
So I encourage my clients to seek therapy because there's only so much I can do in terms of mentoring and coaching from a pragmatic side. But actually, if you've got trauma from your childhood that's stopping you from performing in an interview, then there's not much more I can do. And that's where therapy...
You're blocked, aren't you?
I'm blocked. So therapy combined with coaching, I think is so powerful.
Yeah. I'm really, really excited about it. And I didn't know if I would do it, but just doing that one day at college, I was like, sold. And it's going to cost quite a lot of money and probably like 3 years of doing it part-time. But then I'm going to run everything alongside. So I'll be a journalist as well as a psychotherapist. I think they'll work perfectly together.
100%. I love that.
And it'll open so many more doors.
So many more doors. Lynn, I've loved having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today on a Friday afternoon. I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is a really good discussion. I'm really passionate about things for younger people.
This is great, and it's great that you're showing that you don't have to be ashamed to talk about money. It shouldn't be taboo, and it's never too early to start.
No. Or too late.
Or too late. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Lynn.
Thank you.